Ambassador Jamil Khan is a senior Pakistani diplomat who previously served as ambassador to the UAE, Libya, and Malta. And he joins us now live from Islamabad. Ambassador Khan, thanks for being with us here on Al Jazeera. Let me ask you first, from your vantage point, where do you think things stand with talks at this hour? The Iranian Foreign Ministry says they won't participate in talks with the U.S. now. Does that indicate to you that they're leaving the door ever so slightly open to participation at some stage, perhaps over the next few days?
Yes, thank you for having me on your show. That's right. In fact, Iranians have not said that they are going to completely, walk away from any kind of dialogue in future. They said that for now, they are giving it a pause, or they are not coming for the dialogue. But at the same time, there is a huge development in Islamabad, and I'm also currently in Islamabad, and I can see so much of hustle bustle around the security arrangements. And once I meet my colleagues, I find that there are all the preparations, and there are indications that the Iranians would agree after. Of course, after getting some assurances that the blockade and about their cargo ship, which has been seized. And I don't, in my view, in fact, and if I connect the dots after having met so many people around here, I also had some contacts there in Iran because I've served in the United Nations. So some of my buddies there. So having all those factors in mind, and plus what is the development now, the Americans, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, as you have already broken that news, Al Jazeera, that he's about to land. There's just a few hours from now. J.D. Vance is going to land in Pakistan. And at the same time, Pakistani leadership, both the military leadership as well as the political leadership, they have intensified further their communication with Iran and with the United States as well. And with that intensification of the negotiation, and we also know that the Chief of Defense Forces, Field Marshal Sayed Asim Munir, recently spent 3 days in the war zone area, which is Iran. And he had met, multiple layer of the leadership, both on the military side, the IRCG, as well as the political leadership. So that rapport which the Chief of Defense Forces has with the Iranians, and he has been holding in past such positions in the military, which naturally gives him an advantage that he would know his counterparts and he would know the ranks and files of their decision makers. So having that in mind, I can very conveniently draw the conclusion that the hiccup which had been created because of this cargo ship seized by the naval blockade or by the United States Navy, I think that's going to be, if there are some assurances, and that's what I am anticipating, that there's some assurances would be given by the United States, and of course through Pakistan and Pakistan's mediators. And once it's conveyed to Iran, and all these things are speeding up very fast. And once I evaluate all these factors which is emerging, I can very conveniently draw the conclusion that in coming about 24 to 48 hours maximum, you'll find that some of these hiccups would be addressed and Iranian delegation would be here. And I just heard Donald Trump, on this point that... Yeah,
Ambassador Khan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to pick up on you're talking about this intensification of contacts to try to ensure that this meeting goes ahead. Look, we know how deeply Pakistan has been involved in getting these talks off the ground and mediating, getting a second round scheduled. If a second round does indeed happen, and you're saying you believe it will happen, what do you think the main sticking points will be going forward based on the discussions you're having with officials there?
No, as I said, that the last hiccup, which just emerged yesterday evening, the naval blockade and the cargo ship which has been seized, that, to my mind, is not really that a big a problem. That assurance is once given that. But the previous 10 points which Iranians had given, and that was further fine-tuned, the first and foremost point was Lebanon. And Donald Trump, very smartly, I would say, that he had addressed that point, though indirectly, because he has to cater for Israel also. And he tried to really, in my assessment, he tried to really address both sides, the Iranian and Israeli side, by just having a separate dialogue between Lebanon and Israel. Whereas Iran wanted that in this package, in this negotiation dialogue, in this dialogue previously held, and now the forthcoming dialogue, the first point which they had given was the Lebanon. Well, they had included Yemen also, Iraq, but Lebanon was the priority because Lebanon, Hezbollah, as we know, the kind of relations that the IRGC has with Hezbollah and some deep-rooted relations. So they wanted that on the agenda. The second point, which J.D. Vance, while he was going back from the after having conducted the negotiation, he was very clear that he raised only one point out of those 15 points which the United States had given, and that was the enrichment part of it. And I will draw your attention on that enrichment part, that Iranians have always been taking drawing the strength from the international law. And international law, the NPT, Iranians say that, okay, that's our sovereign right. My personal understanding is that the sticking point is the 450 enriched material, which is 60%, and its disposal, as to how that framework is drawn, whether it is kept in Iran or like last time in 2015, Russians had facilitated the diluted that enriched material, brought it back. So some kind of a framework would be made on that count. But the basic problem of the state of Hormuz then, that now Iran does not want to be to have the same arrangement what it had previously. Now Iran wants to, and again Iran is taking drawing the strength from the international law, the United Nations laws of IC, and Article 17, 19, and 24 are very clear about it. And I guess they are going to refer to these articles, and because of which probably they will now have the regulation under Article 24 of the State of Hormuz, and that is going to be ironed out during this dialogue, in my view, and as per my understanding. But otherwise, almost all the points. And by the way, there are repetition of the point. Once they talk about the proxy, they talk about the Lebanon, Iraq, and then again they talk about that there should be complete seizure of the strikes on Hezbollah. Again, they say that the entire region should have all the conflict should be resolved. So, and from the 15 point which United States had advanced, there are 6 points which are common in it, and they all relate to the enrichment program. So, and if we just make set and subset of these points, basically you will find that Americans have 4 points altogether, because there's a repetition in some form or the other, and 10 points of Iran. Again, there are some repetition. So previously also, there was hardly any soaring point except for the enrichment. And this time, the state of Hormuz would also, I think, would be discussed. And while we are talking, there are news going on, and your correspondents here would really update you on that, about the arrival of J.D. Vance,
Ambassador
what
Khan,
kind of a preparation.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We just have to be mindful of time. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Ambassador Jamil Khan, senior Pakistani diplomat who previously served as ambassador to the UAE, Libya, and Malta. Thank you so much for being with us here on Al Jazeera. Great to get your perspective.
Great to be with you on your show. Thank you.